Hello, it has been a time and a half. Currently it is March and I'm in Utah, but I'm not gonna talk about that right now. I'm gonna talk about January when I was back in New Mexico. Basically, 2018 came around and I was like, hey, I haven't really been making videos. I decided I'm gonna try to cut back from like the goal of weekly. Instead, I'm gonna try to do at least one video a month. And since it is March, I have not done that. However, it's not too late to get started. Basically, this is a whole little new series and I am just gonna review my month at the end of each month. Let's start with week 1. At the tail end of December, I got hired into a ski instructor position at Angel Fire, New Mexico. I came in late, I had missed all the training, and I was just thrown straight into busy season. It was a bit stressful. I worked with the adults, mostly people who had never skied before, sometimes people who had never seen snow before, so it was pretty interesting. To kick off the new year, the resort throws a little torchlight parade, which is basically the skiers and ski instructors go up to the top of a hill. You have 2 flares in your hand, and there's 2 lines of skiers on top of the hill, and when they come down, they make little loops like that, back and forth, and you have those flares, and it's in the middle of the night, and you're swooping around, and it's dope, it's cool. There's fireworks going off, it's pretty solid. And that was actually a super fun night. That was one of the more memorable nights. That's when I actually started making friends with the other instructors. During my time in Angel Fire, I was continuing to live out of my truck, and it worked out. The winter was not winter. It was very warm, it did not snow. Not great for the whole skiing thing, but pretty great for the whole living in the truck sort of thing. That brings us on to week 2. It was kicked off with my friend Melissa. She's a snowboarder. She had a little party going on at her house. I'm not really a big party scene sort of person, but it was a lot of fun. I got to connect with the instructors and staff in a not work setting more, and I actually started getting those friends solidified. When I was not partying hard or teaching 50-year-olds how to ski, I was being a giant reclusive nerd. I'd set a goal to catch up to Doctor Who. Basically because I heard Jodie Whittaker was becoming the new Doctor. And the most exciting thing about week 2 was I went on a camping trip with my friend Veronica. Veronica is also from Ohio, so we kind of bonded, we did a few runs together. And there's this one run, the Chili Express, and we were sitting in the chair, we look around, and we're like, dude, it's so pretty out here. We'd love to see the sunrise here, or something like that. And then we started talking about camping. And that one fateful day, in the 2nd week of January, Veronica and I set off in the dark, under the stars, had our tents and a big ol' bag, sleeping bags, blankets ahoy, snow pants, ski jacket, hats and everything bundled up because it was very cold. And here we go under the lift, hiking up a mountain. And oh my god, it was a grueling hike. There's basically 3 really steep hills on the way up. So we're walking and then my legs are just, they're crying out in pain. And I was inwardly cursing myself for taking my off time to watch Doctor Who and sit and veg, because that is not great conditioning for very steep hikes. But we're in it, it's very rocky, it's very dark, it's snow and slippery and everything, and I'm just like, oh god, we're gonna twist an ankle and die. So we keep pushing through. Veronica was very encouraging. We had this goal set, we gotta go to the top. After about 2 hours, we did it. We made it to the top, and at the top of the lift, there is this little restaurant. And on that restaurant, there's a little raised deck. So being the resourceful Ohioans that we are, we thought, yo, we're just gonna take our tent, walk under the deck, and set our tent up here where there's no snow, there's no wind, and ski patrol cannot easily see us. We crawl under this deck, and there's concrete everywhere, there's boards, there's trash scattered around, there's a dead mouse on the ground. It's not the most ideal camping spot, but it was the warmest, the driest, the most reasonable. Even so, I felt like a hobo. I felt like a real hobo. That was my hobo moment, sleeping in this dirty underside hovel of a deck, surrounded by dead mice and trash and garbage, in a tent with a friend. A very bonding experience. Apparently week 3 wasn't a very memorable time. I just have in capitals, hike with Dylan. And let me tell you, it was very super stupendously exciting. Dylan is my friend from my old job. He was actually my assistant crew supervisor at Rocky Mountain Youth Corps. I worked with him in the fall right before my ski job, and we were now living in separate towns. Dylan and I had made plans to go on a hike one day. We didn't really plan out where we wanted to hike. We were just gonna be in Ski Valley, up in the mountains somewhere, kinda hanging out, catching up. And I got a text message from Dylan saying, hey, do you just wanna hike the loop? And I was like, yeah man, I've never hiked the loop. Let's do it. I got there, we started hiking, and by the end of the day, it was 6 hours. It was a 6-hour hike. Did not realize that, but it was glorious. So we are here. There's that. Just walked across that snow on that cliff. Very beautiful. So beautiful. Look at that beautiful Dylan. Yay! Dylan is the funniest guy. He just makes me laugh like no other. And then there's me, just to prove to the world, this is my face. What up here? Dylan! Where are we? Dylan's dog, George, the Great Pyrenees. God bless George. George is the best dog in the whole wide world. He's just this big old white fluffer, and George hiked with us the whole time. Not the whole time. George just went off and did his own thing, and we'd be like, George, where are you, George? And then we'd see George a mile ahead up in the cliffs chasing after some bighorn sheep, and we're just like, ah, George, classic George. We saw, like I said, we saw those bighorn sheep roaming around. So nice. Saw the solo dude with the bighorns, and then we saw a group of females just like prancing along, and then George bolts after those females, and we just see him running along. We're like, oh, that's so sweet. And we keep crawling upwards into elevation, eventually go past tree line, eventually get into snowpack, and finally, we reach the top. 13,000 feet. There is Wheeler Peak, which is the highest point in New Mexico, and we had both been to Wheeler Peak beforehand, so we decided not to go to the top of Wheeler Peak. We were just like, yeah, let's just descend now. At the top of the mountain, I decided, hey, I could use a little more physical activity after 6 hours of hiking. So, what I did is I loaded myself up with rocks, because I used to be a geologist, and I still love rocks. That brings us to the last week of January, week 4, when I took a trip to Colorado for the first time. January 23rd, I am out with some of my other ski instructors, snowboard instructors. We're out here in Salida, Colorado, going on a little ski trip at Monarch, and it's pretty solid. Look at that. Oh, so nice. Because our resorts have a little trade-off there, we get to ski at Monarch for free. I pretty much did my own little thing because I am not the best skier in the world. Skiing isn't my favorite activity, specifically downhill skiing. What I like the best is being out in that nature in winter, seeing the snow piled up on the trees and all the pretty sights. That's my favorite part. End of the day, I just went really slow through some tree trails, and I just stopped, and I just had a moment when I was like, oh, this is it. This is nice. And that's my January. I will be concluding this video with an old OAC tradition, a little game called Rosebud Thorn. Rose is the best part of the month, Thorn is the worst part of the month or what you would like to see improved, and Bud is what you are excited for next month. Let's start with Rose. The best parts of January was definitely camping out with Veronica and also hiking with Dylan. My upcoming job is with Utah Conservation Corps, and like with all conservation corps, you're outside doing 10 hours of physical labor. So it was great to be conditioning on these recreational things, but at the same time bonding and building deeper friendships with friendos. Especially after doing nothing, like I mentioned with binge watching Doctor Who for a few weeks. It was really nice to be able to get outside again, be physical, and have that rush of endorphins flood through my brain. And the thorn of the month is that binge watch spree. There was a lot of time spent consuming when I could have been creating or doing something productive, and yeah. I made a lot of plans, set a lot of goals, none of which I followed through, and that just got me down on myself. So I'll try to do that better next time in the future. It's a struggle. And let's finish with Bud. As I mentioned earlier in the video, it is March already, so what I'm excited for February doesn't really count anymore. But what I wrote down in my notes, and what I was excited for in January, was moving to Utah to live there for 10 whole months as an AmeriCorps, Utah Conservation Corps crew leader. And I'm very excited and nervous and crazy because I'm living in Utah for the first time, and on top of that I am in a designated leadership position, which is something I've been pursuing, and I was very excited for this job because, oh my gosh, I am a technical leader now that people look up to. Oh, so it's a lot of those nerves, but also a lot of that excitement, and those feelings are actually still kind of fresh, even in March. And I'm here. Here I am. Welcome to Utah. Basically, this whole little monthly review series is just a little introduction to get me into the habit of posting on YouTube again and get back into that flow. You can expect one video from me at the end of each month, and I'm very excited to be back into the swing of things. And I'm gonna throw back my conclusion to you. In the comments, let me know your rosebud and thorn of January 2018. Again, it's March. It's been a while since January, but I'll ask you how your March has been at the end of March. Oh boy. Ours, I'm trying to tell a story about George the Great Pyrenees. It's a truck. It's a truck. Get out of here, truck. Yuck. Next job. Oh, sorry, there's a rainbow up there. I'm very distracted.